Alonso, along with Aston Martin, had the most reverse progress during this season in F1. They started as the underdogs in F1 and were competing with Red Bull during the start of the season when Mercedes and Ferrari were still trying to do something, while McLaren was nowhere to be found, and now it seems they are at the bottom with no light at the end of the tunnel. Fernando Alonso seems to think that as well, as he called the team lost with no sign of progress. Let's take a look. Just last month, during the Italian Grand Prix, Alonso was ranked third in the World Championship. However, due to a series of frustrating races, he has now dropped to fifth place. Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris and George Russell are catching up to him in the standings. Aston Martin, on the other hand, was in fifth place in the Constructors' Championship, and they are not in danger of falling further behind, despite being outperformed by McLaren. Alonso had a tough time in Mexico, starting in 13th place and then falling back in the race due to suspected damage to the car's floor from debris left by Sergio Perez's first corner accident. Eventually, the team decided to retire the car. Alonso's teammate, Lance Stroll, began the race from the pit lane due to a specification change. He was allowed to pass Alonso, who was having a tough race, before retiring after a late collision with Valtteri Bottas. Alonso recognizes that his position in the championship will continue to drop. He mentioned that they are not in contention for anything meaningful and that they will use the upcoming race in Brazil as a learning experience, even if they have to start from the pit lane. In the Constructors' Championship, their current position is fixed, and in the Drivers' Championship, they will lose a couple of places. Alonso acknowledged that they are currently ahead of Ferrari's George, Lando and others, but they anticipate losing these positions as their competitors have faster cars. They are keeping an eye on what they can achieve in the future. Alonso is determined to emphasize that the team is putting in a lot of effort to turn things around. He mentioned, "We are working as much as we can." He said, "It's not that we are just happy with the situation, it's not the position we wish we were, but at the same time we are working very hard to reverse the situation. And sometimes you learn more from the difficulties than from the celebrations. So right now we have a difficult time. And we are trying to do as many tests as possible, giving as much feedback as possible to the factory in Silverstone. And hopefully, as I said, finish on a high and not on a low." When asked if there's a chance for improvement within this season, he replied, "I think so. We still need to go to 3 different places, 3 different circuits, which will give us more data again on the car. It depends on what we call finish on a high. If we think that we will fight for podiums or something like that, I don't think so. But to finish in a competitive way, I think we still have the possibility." How did they go from being the second best team to the current situation? It appears that their recent car developments have been quite awkward and not up to par. When a driver chooses to join a team, they should consider the team's history of in-season development. In the past, Force India, which is now Aston Martin, was known for its strong in-season development. They often started the season slowly, but improved significantly by mid-season, even competing for podium finishes. While Aston Martin is no longer Force India, it's disappointing to see their current state. The recent upgrades have been a complete failure. In Austin, they cited the sprint weekend format as a reason for the underwhelming performance after introducing upgrades. However, it's evident that the upgrades didn't meet expectations. In the recent Mexico race, Aston Martin seemed to have the slowest car overall. Teams like Alfa, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams demonstrated better pace. It's a concerning situation for Aston Martin. It's interesting how Aston Martin and McLaren have had completely opposite seasons in Formula One. Many believe that Aston Martin's decline in performance is partly due to their recent move to a new factory. It's challenging to set up systems, production lines, and the supply chain in a new facility, and even with the best planning, things can go wrong. In today's Formula One, it's not easy to afford factory upgrades. Some speculate that Aston Martin might have an agreement with Honda to endure the challenges now in order to establish a strong partnership in the future. Developing a competitive car requires a deep understanding of its design. If a team borrows or legally replicates another team's aerodynamic package, it can be difficult to make significant improvements over the season. It's a bit puzzling how Aston Martin's upgrades initially appeared to be a big improvement and then didn't deliver as expected. Many people feel sympathy for Fernando Alonso, who has shown great skill and dedication. He seems to have carried the team this year, and it's possible that the team made a mistake in their development strategy. Some wonder if they focused too much on making the car better suited to his teammate Lance Stroll, and that might have backfired. When Force India FI used to have a car that resembled Mercedes and struggled with in-season development, it was likely because they relied on technology they bought or copied. This lack of deep knowledge made it challenging for them to improve the technology further. Looking at their recent performance improvements over the winter and subsequent struggles with in-season development, it's like history repeating itself. Fernando Alonso has experienced this pattern before. He joins a successful team, initially has a strong car, but over time the team's performance declines. In the recent Mexico Grand Prix, he went to the pits because his car was damaged after picking up debris, not because his teammate was faster. It's essential to clarify that these observations are not about personal preferences for or against Alonso. Last year, the car he had was not great, and you could argue that the team started to perform better after he joined, though not solely because of him. He is not the sole reason for the team's decline. During the recent Grand Prix, Alonso's car was damaged due to debris, and this is why his teammate Lance Stroll may have briefly had an advantage. However, Stroll also got involved in another incident later. It's not accurate to claim that Alonso was consistently beaten by his teammate this season, as he has outperformed them significantly. Critics who focus on criticizing Alonso when things go wrong and ignore his significant achievements are likely missing the bigger picture. Alonso has a track record of improving the teams he joins, including Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, and now Aston Martin. The team's in-season performance issues are more related to failed car upgrades rather than Alonso's driving skills. It's essential to consider the long-term consistency where Alonso shines. Team boss Mike Crack believes that Aston Martin is not lost in terms of their development plan. It's more about learning and understanding these updates. They have received some updates in Austin, and more will come after the Mexico race. The issues are not due to a major problem in their system. Despite the challenges of switching between car specifications, the team is staying united. There is disappointment within Aston Martin, including from their owner Lawrence Stroll, but they are determined to keep pushing forward. Crack wants to make it clear that they are not lost or making unreasonable decisions. They are analyzing data and making pragmatic choices based on it. They understand that every racetrack is different, and the car's performance can vary from one circuit to another. It's a complex process to improve the car and bring upgrades. Crack emphasizes that there is no major problem in their development system. They are actively working together as a team to analyze their data and understand where their weaknesses lie. They are open-minded and willing to revert to older specifications if that helps them learn and make improvements. Crack acknowledges that there is disappointment within the team, including from their owner Lawrence Stroll. They are all unhappy with the decline in competitiveness after a strong start to the season. However, they don't need anyone to remind them of the situation. They are committed to working collaboratively and making necessary decisions to address the challenges they are facing. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think Alonso and Aston Martin can make a comeback next season? Will they develop a car that they will be able to upgrade and finally pose a serious threat to their competition? Let us know in the comments below.